Peace, peace. You know what it is. It's your man SKYZOO Skyzoo, live out the borough. And this is the NBA Exchange with my man Dexter Henry. You know how you doing it, man. Log on, tap in. Let's get into it.
What's good, everybody? Happy Wednesday. We are now, last time I talked to y'all, the regular season was still going on. Regular season is over. We are in the playoffs. Well, not playoffs yet. Play-in tournament. We had the first couple of games last night. Two more play-in tournament games tonight. There'll be one, there'll be another few, possibly on Friday. We will see how that all plays out. But it'll be very interesting. We got the playoffs starting on Saturday, one of my favorite days of the year. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. We will be talking to Kenny Ducey on Friday's show. We'll be talking about betting, how you should bet in these NBA playoffs and what you should do. But we're going to preview some of those playoff matchups today, and we're going to talk about the play-in. It's Wednesday, so y'all know what time it is. If you come here for hot takes, this isn't it. This isn't what we do. Y'all know this. It's my man, Jarod Hector. He joins me on the NBA Exchange to give some perspective. What's up, Jarod? How you doing, man?
Chilling, locked away in my recording booth over here. But, you know, even though I'm locked in doing some work, ain't nobody talking about hot takes. If y'all want hot takes, you know what stations to go find that. I ain't even going to put those stations out because I don't want to give them any more press.
Now, Jarod is locked in the booth, and if you saw Jarod with us on the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast the other day, you would have heard he was talking about, wanting to turn the music down in his headphones because we thought he was going to spit some bars. But this is not what Jarod does. It's voiceover work, not giving y'all those bars.
Nah, no bars, no hot fire. It is hilarious though, right? Like all those like early '90s hip hop, you hear it'll be like, "Yo, man, turn me up in the headphones," and I'm like, "Yo, how loud y'all want the headphones to fucking be?" Damn.
I also want to know how are these engineers and producers messing up that they had them so low in the headphones in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I don't know.
It's one of those things. Like I've heard like Biggie and like Jay talk about it. Of course, Biggie, rest in peace. Like just the idea of like they just love to because they want to hear how they sound like on the back. On the feedback, it's just but it's all a matter of preference, right? You want it loud, you want it medium, you want it soft, whatever works for you, whatever floats your boat or finds your lost remote.
Yeah, no, it's always interesting with that. But like I said, we got a lot to get into. Two play-in games last night: Nets, Cavs, Wolves, Clippers. Both were really good games, differently played games. We'll start with the Nets. The Nets dropped the Cavs to grab the number 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Nets looked like they was going to run away with this after the first quarter. Kyrie Irving was on fire in the first half, 9 of 9. He had a killer game. What did you take from this game? The Nets were able to hang on in the end and win this. But what did you take from what the Nets did on Tuesday night, Jarod?
I took away what I think we all know to be true, that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are two of the best shot creators and shot makers in the history of the game. Not just current modern time, present day, this era, this season, during their careers, like of all time. I said this in our group chat last night. I don't care how elite your defense is. Like those two can just make shots because that's how good they are. And anytime you have that, you have a chance to win ball games. Now, excellence and superstar play like the net, like what Kevin and Kyrie can do, tends to mask a lot of other deficiencies your team has, right? And the deficiencies they have they're small on the wing. They are poor on defense in terms of their effort consistently for a full 48 minutes. I mean, you saw it in that game last night. When did the team tend to struggle? When one of KD or Kyrie were on the bench, right? That's when the team started to struggle. And that's what you're going to see. So, and you can't play them 48 minutes a night, though Steve Nash damn well going to try to do that all playoffs long. That's what's going to ultimately hurt this team in the long run, is that you cannot buy any significant rest for those two guys, because once one of them sits, things just kind of go into shambles. And, it's problematic. But, I think that their next round series against the Celtics is going to be exciting. Boston should be favored, but Boston shouldn't be sitting pretty like, yeah, it should be pretty easy for us.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that series because we know that's the series that is going to happen, and that's will now face the Boston Celtics in the 2-7 matchup in the East, and we'll break down a little bit more of how we think that is going to play out. Now, on the Western side, the other 7-8 game, the Wolves and the Clippers. This was, to me, Jarod, a very entertaining game. I predicted it would be the under. I think the under in this game was the line was at 231 in terms of total points. It was under. There was some bad defense, non-disciplined defense, I will say, played in this game. There were a lot of fouls. Pat Bev was doing Pat Bev things, which makes our boy Brian Fonseca happy. Karl-Anthony Towns, he was terrible in this game, and he fouled out and was doing too much. But D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards were actually really good. The Wolves were down 10 in the fourth. They come back. They win this game. They will now play the Grizzlies. We'll get to that later, which is going to excite myself and Jarod. We've been talking about the series for the last 2 to 3 weeks. What do you take from this game and what the Wolves did, or is this one the Clippers let get away? They blew it.
It's a little bit of both, right? I mean, it's never always one thing. Look, Karl-Anthony Towns is an all-NBA caliber player. He will likely make an all-NBA team this year. Last night's performance in the play-in was not all-NBA worthy. Shout out to Ty Lue and the Clippers. They had a great strategy and game plan, and it worked. It frustrated him. On that last play that he fouled out, he actually committed 2 fouls and only got called for 1.
Yes.
Right? So, the fact that he was so incredulous looking at the ref, I'm like, dog, like that was you. And at this stage of his career now, Dexter, he has to be able to work through these things and figure out, okay, here's how this team is defending me. Here's how the refs are calling it. All right. Because he is, despite last night's game, he is that talented of a player. Like Karl-Anthony Towns is immensely talented and highly skilled. He just needs to figure out, oh, okay, this is the defense you're throwing at me. Cool. Mm-hmm. Let me do something else now to offset that. And, with more reps and more times, he'll get it. Look, Pat Bev, as you mentioned, was just annoying as all hell last night. Got in the middle of everything. He was a -5 for the game. Now, granted, I don't use single game plus minus as a stat, but, he hit some big threes. He was getting in their heads. He was doing all that. But like you, I was really impressed with what D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards in particular did last night. Brian Fonseca in our group chat last night said D'Lo as like the stabilizing veteran presence. Who would have thought that would have been him when he was sending out Iggy Azalea pictures to teammates about whatever Iggy was doing behind someone's back or whatever that situation was when he was with the Lakers? Who thought he'd be the mature, calming presence? But he is that now. He was able to run efficient offense, get to his spots. We talk about this all the time. It's not playoff, it's play-in, but the ability to create for oneself and others in the half court and convert, he did that time and time again last night. On the Clippers side, Paul George was excellent last night.
Fantastic.
And everybody jokes about playoff P, pandemic P, whatever you want. Look, I understand there are limitations with him as your number one, but this dude is really good at basketball. Like excellent at basketball. So Clippers ain't dead yet.
No, Clippers are not dead yet. They are very much alive and well. And I thought they could be dangerous. I thought you could have picked them to win that game. They had it. They just didn't make the shots down the stretch. They weren't able to get stops. Probably disappointing, but we'll see what they can do, who they will play, the winner of the 9-10 game. We'll talk a little bit about that later when we comes up in our picks. Okay, playing been fun so far in the 7-8 games. We'll get to the 9-10 games a little bit later. But I want to talk about these series. And so we'll start off with the Eastern Conference because there's some very interesting things and how we're going to pick this series and what we think is going to happen. Milwaukee Bucks, defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, Jarod. Look, let's call a spade a spade. Let's call a thing a thing. They avoided playing the Nets on Sunday. I don't want to say they necessarily ran from them, but they weren't trying to play that matchup. And to some degree, the Celtics, they played their guys, seemed like they wanted that matchup. All right, so now the Bucks, they get the Chicago Bulls. In the first round, the Bulls started off great this season, struggled down the stretch. They've had a lot of injuries and whatnot of that nature. They are the 6th seed. Who do you like in this matchup? Is this an easy one for the Milwaukee Bucks here? Or who do you like? How do you see the series playing out?
So shout out to my colleague, Coach David Thorpe at True Hoop, who said, I don't know if they were ducking the Nets per se so much as choosing to play the Chicago Bulls. And look, all season long in the East, who we've been talking about, Brooklyn, Philly, Miami, right? Every other team is getting all this ink. Meanwhile, the team that actually won the championship last year, the Milwaukee Bucks, nobody's saying shit about them. Well, Milwaukee still has, I mean, look, I think KD is the best player in the world. So I'm not going to say Giannis is better, but the Milwaukee has an unstoppable force in Giannis Antetokounmpo that no one has an answer for in the NBA. So they're still that. They still have Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Chicago has been struggling, and we know that they will not have Lonzo Ball for the playoffs. Zach LaVine struggling with injury. Look, the flight from Chicago to Milwaukee is 45 minutes? This ain't going to be heavy travel for them. They make light work of Chicago. I see a 4-game sweep, maybe 5 if they fool around with play with their food one night. But I mean, Chicago just doesn't have, first of all, they have no Giannis answer. Like that's the first thing. They have no Giannis answer. So there's that, right? And once they start doubling and doing all that, okay, now I got Chris Middleton operating like an open space, Drew Holiday. I mean, it's just Bobby Portis, Brian's boy. Like they have too many weapons. And the thing that we cannot measure with any metrics or stats, they won the championship last year. So they not nervous, but ain't worried about, I'm gonna get fired if we go down. None of that exists anymore. They're just gonna roll in the games and be like, all right, we're just gonna do our thing.
I like them too. I'm with you. It feels like you should give Chicago 2 games, but I don't think they have enough.
They don't have it.
I'm with you. I don't think they have enough. I'll give them a game. They'll win one of those games in Chicago. I'll say Bucks in 5 here for you. I just think the Bucks are too good. I think the Bucks 1 and 2. I like Coach Thorpe's point. Shout out to Coach Thorpe, because I do think Nets fans have been putting the narrative that people have been ducking them.
Of course.
Choosing who you want to play here and making your life a little easier in terms of travel, which you astutely pointed out, is totally fine. There's no shame in that, right? There's no shame in saying, hey, this is a good matchup for us, make things easier, maybe helps us get some more rest. They've been banged up. Brook Lopez just coming back. Giannis has to do a lot in the defensive end. Okay, fine. I don't think it's necessarily worse. I think it's a great matchup for the Bucks. Bulls, they got nothing to hang their head about this year. No. They just didn't have the continuity with guys, and I think that kind of hurt their season.
And if Lonzo was healthy, I would look at this vastly differently.
I would too.
But he's not. And again, Lonzo is he's not going to wow you with like stats, scoring 25 a night. It's not, but he is a ceiling raiser, right? Because now you put him and Alex Caruso on the perimeter. Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, y'all ain't getting into easy shots like you thought, right? Now that puts more pressure on Giannis, right? So it just sets things up differently. And, Giannis is going to kill Vooch. I mean, I just don't like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's the thing, too, that it's just Chicago already had problems defensively inside. And when you got Giannis and Brook and even Bobby Portis, as you mentioned, could do some damage.
Yeah, it's just not.
Yeah, Vooch has no answer. They don't got much of an answer inside. If they were going to do anything, it would have been their defense on the perimeter, and they only have one of those guys in Caruso now. So
exactly,
I just don't see it. All right, yeah, I'm going Bucks in 5 here. That's going to be my pick. Next series. This one I'm intrigued to hear from you, because I think we might be on the same wavelength with this one. Which I might not have been early in the season, but it's Philadelphia 76ers, the 4 seed. They're playing the number 5 Toronto Raptors. Tell me if I'm wrong here, Jarod, but I feel like the Raptors are being overlooked. They're a little underrated. They might be ahead of the game in terms of things with the NBA, with Nick Nurse playing a lot of length and size that can cause some problems for teams. And they've started to get, I don't love their offense, but they've started to get a little better if you've been watching them as the season has gone on, the comfortability in what they have to do, particularly in their young players. Pascal Siakam's had an underrated year. Also, their rookie, Scotty Barnes, who's had a fantastic year. Can the Raptors beat the Sixers here? I think they can. Or am I tripping on it?
No, you're not tripping. So let's start on the Raptors side. First of all, shout out to Nick Nurse. His scheming will likely win them at least one game on its own. He's going to throw out something in the middle of a game that's going to get the Sixers all out of sorts, and he will win one game just based on that. You mentioned Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Chris Boucher. I mean, this team is just nothing but 6'7" and taller wings, just arms and legs for days, right? And teams that are long and athletic and rangy like that, if you're not the same, that's hard to play against. The hardest thing to do in this league is score over length. It's just very hard to do that unless you're Kevin Durant, right? Like, I mean, very few people in this league can score consistently over length. It's just too hard. And that's what the Bucks throw at you. Nothing but length. No disrespect to Fred VanVleet. And so I'm with you. I have concerns offensively for them. But I think, again, Nurse will win them a game. Their defense will win them another game. I see too. A large part of how this series is going to go is going to be, now we can go to the Philly side, is how the referees officiate this game. If they call the game tight, Joel Embiid and James Harden will get Philly into the bonus early in every single quarter. And they might go to the free throw lines 50, 60 times in a game, right? Because those two are masters at drawing fouls. Now, if the refs swallow their whistle and they're not doing that, well, now things get interesting. And it gets interesting because James Harden has not been the all-NBA player he's been in years past. Even last season, he was excellent last season up until the hamstring injury. But since that hamstring injury, he has not been good. You see flashes here and there, but he's not doing it consistently. And he was brought here to be that consistent number 2 guy next to Embiid. Now, speaking of Embiid, as great as he is, he has yet to dominate a playoff series yet in his career, right? I have not seen him be that dude who's like, oh no, for a series, it's 35, 15, 3. We haven't really seen that. He puts some good numbers, but not the dominant ways that he does in the regular season. So that's something to watch. The last piece to watch for Philly, Matisse Thybulle is their third most important player. Mm-hmm. You argue between him and Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey is a second-year player, so you put a lot of pressure on him. Notice we haven't mentioned Tobias Harris there.
Yes. I was about to say that. We have not mentioned him.
What does he make? $30 million a year, somewhere in that range? Mm-hmm. Okay. And the fact that we have not mentioned him yet tells you all you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Thybulle is not vaccinated, as we know, which means he cannot go to Toronto to play any games. Why does that matter? Because Matisse Thybulle is their best defender, on-ball defender at the wing. You don't got him to put on Siakam. You don't got to put him on Barnes. Hey, man, you got problems now. And as you mentioned, Siakam's been playing excellent. So this could get real dicey for Philly in round 1. Very dicey.
It could, to me. It could get real dicey. I think a lot of it, as you said, has to do with what Harden can do and what kind of James Harden you have. Any of you been watching Harden, like Jarod mentioned, from the end of the playoffs last year, starters here in Brooklyn, has not looked like himself. He's been just throwing shots up at the rim. He's not getting the call. So as you brought up, Jarod, how this is being called, particularly even more so to me on Harden than it is Embiid, is really important here for us to see how this game is dictated, especially because the Raptors have a lot of guys that can throw at Harden. One of the things I like about them, more than even Embiid, they can throw a lot of guys from different looks. If Harden is not able to take some of that pressure off Embiid, and the Raptors even fine with saying, hey, we're going to let Embiid get his. Now, what are you guys going to do?
Scotty Barnes would lock him up.
And but this is what we're saying. We're saying a rookie could lock him up and give him a lot of problems against a seasoned vet who, albeit, and you know this, Jarod, we've discussed this many times on different shows, has not always gotten it done necessarily in the playoffs. I do think there's something to what you're saying, too, on Embiid. He has not dominated a playoff series yet like we would like to see. I love Embiid, one of my favorite players to watch in the league.
Without question.
But he if he wants to put his stamp, he's got to do it. Now, how far they're going to go, this is for down the road in future weeks if they advance. A lot of that I agree with you is going to have to do on Harden and what he can do. So, with all that being said, who are you picking here? Are you going? Man. Yeah, I see you like, shit, I don't know. I might have to go with these.
Look, I think this is going 6 or 7 games easy. My only problem with Toronto is I worry about them offensively, as you mentioned. Consistently, how are you scoring in the half court? And Philly has Joel Embiid in the half court, right? So all else fails, that's a pretty good hammer to smash some nails. And look, man, I'm gonna say Philly in 7, but look, if it was Raptors in 6, I wouldn't be surprised. Because Philly's the kind of team I can see too. Things start going bad and they just melt down.
Yeah, And you got no Ben Simmons to blame this time.
That's right. No Ben to blame on this one.
This is big. And when I talk to people in Philly, it's the pressure's there. They gotta
Maxey
win.
is going to have to be huge in this series.
Huge. Now he played good last year in the playoffs, but I think there's something to what you're saying. Also, Jarod, is last year in the playoffs, the expectations for him because of where he was in the pecking order.
He was found money.
Right. This year, you just said it. You're expecting him to be their third most important player, particularly on offense. Tybal probably on defense. It is a shame we haven't talked about Tobias Harris. But you're expecting Maxey, who played very well this regular season, particularly down the stretch. You're expecting him to be that third best guy. Now the expectations have raised. It's now a different level. If Maxey can step up and he's fine, I think it's a good sign for them. I think they'll be okay. And they'll win the series. If he doesn't, and he looks like a guy playing in the playoffs with it in a tough media market where there is expectations. Now with Harden to probably get to a conference finals, however fair you think that is, that's a lot on Maxey. I'm not making excuses for Maxey. I'm just saying it's a lot.
It's a lot for a second-year player. Now, look, this could all change, Dex, if Tobias Harris actually shows up and plays. Right. I'm not even saying play up to his contract. I'm just saying play like close to an all-star level type of dude. If he does that, they're fine. But how confident are you in that happening?
Not, you know why? It's one of those things. Not because we haven't seen it before. Like that's just how we operate as human beings, right? A lot of times we haven't seen this before, and so this is what happens. Can he do it? Does he have the talent to do it? I think he's a very good player. He's played very good for a lot of teams, and when he is, particularly under Doc Rivers, he's been so hot and cold, man. Like you just don't know what it is you're going to get with him. So this might be the toughest series for me to pick, Jarod. It might be.
It's hard, man.
When I think about it, because you know what my gut's telling me. My gut's saying Toronto.
Go with your gut, man.
It's telling me Toronto, man. It's telling me at the worst, Toronto's really gonna mess things up. Because I have too many question marks on Philly and a lot of it on James Harden and how he's gonna play. I believe Embiid is going to have a good series. I do believe that. Like I actually feel pretty
because they have no answer for Embiid. They have nothing.
I feel pretty good about that. But you also said something. I like your point about giving Nick Nurse a game because of his scheming. And Nick Nurse, a coach who's actually gotten things done, and we're giving him credit, unlike some people did for Brad Stevens. We're not doing that here. But I do think there's something to that, and I do think the players buy in. I do think there's something to some of those players having played in a run to the championship. There's some of that toughness there.
Go ahead, man. Do it. Go with the Raptors. I ain't mad at you.
Raptors in 7. There we go.
Raptors in 7.
We got it. We got this in 7. All right. Moving on, you touched on this series because we talked about the Nets in the play-in game. Celtics, Nets, we know they're playing each other. I think here's the thing. Here's something you always talk to me about. You and I have had many conversations about the Nets and KD off this show and off other shows. You always say, you got Kevin Durant, you got a chance, okay? He puts the fear of God into a lot of people. There's not that many people that can guard him. All that is true. When I watched the game last night, Jarod, and this is what I want you to respond to if my concerns are legitimate here. I watched the game last night, and I'm like, okay, Nets can dominate. We can see what they can do offensively. KD and Kyrie are cooking. My colleague, Zach Braziller at the Post, put out a tweet after the first quarter. It was like, is it too early to say that the Nets are going to be headed to Brooklyn? And I was like, yeah, it's too early because their defense is suspect. And we saw the Cavs come back against them. I have a lot of concerns about their defense against a Celtics team that's very good defensively, although we'll be without Robert Williams. My question is, does the fear of the two stars and how good they can be offensively, does that overtake, and just having those two, is that more than me being concerned about their defense in terms of picking them to win against the Celtics?
No, not at all. Look, the fear about their defense, the concerns about their defense are legitimate, right? This was a team at the beginning of the season that was a top 5 defense, right? And then they started sliding, and they're now 22nd or something like that. They've really fallen back to the pack. Now, when they are locked in, like they were in the first quarter and for most of the second quarter, you see they can guard. When they are locked in, they can guard. Kevin Durant is an excellent defender. You put up that lineup with Durant, Drummond, or Nick Claxton. And you saw from last night, when Kyrie's engaged on that end, he's not a turnstile, right? He's strong in the chest. You try to back him down, he's got quick hands. He pokes balls away, disrupts your offense. They can do that. Their problem is, as much as Seth Curry and Patty Mills want to on defense, man, when you're 6 foot tall, like I just, and it just is what it is, man. And you got wings coming at you that are 6'8" and taller. There's really not a lot you can do. They have Kessler Edwards who will play, but he is a rookie, and rookies will make mistakes. But then this is the playoffs where your mistakes are magnified. And again, with all the load that Kyrie and KD have to carry offensively, to not have them do that defensively, it's a lot to ask. So your concerns are legitimate to be worried about their defense for sure.
Would you, with that being said, for me, and we talked about the Celtics defense. We know how good the Celtics defense has been this year under first-year head coach Ime Udoka. Can they be as good defensively against this Nets team without Robert Williams? Because look, let's not act like they don't have a tall order here trying to stop Kyrie and Kevin Durant, who look invigorated. And I also think there's something to the Nets having something to prove here about their season, which has been chaotic. Yeah. So do you believe the Celtics defense can slow those two down, not shut them down,
right?
Slow them down, and can they win?
You ain't shutting them down. Look, can you slow them down? Sure, because the goal is to make them inefficient, right? That's the goal. Okay, they're going to get theirs, but they can't be scoring, 60 combined points on 25 shots, like right, or 30. We can't have that, right? Like we got to have them take 50 plus shots to get those points, right? Wasted possessions. So the Celtics can do that. What Robert Williams allows them to do is they can switch 1 through 5, right? So then you're like, all right, you get him out on KD, Kyrie, you feel fine, right? Similar to what our boy Brian says what the Heat do with Bam. You get switched on the perimeter guy, you're not concerned. Well, if Al Horford gets switched on the perimeter guy now, you're a little bit more concerned. Daniel Tice, you're a little bit more concerned, right? And if KD and Kyrie can get those guys into foul trouble, then the Celtics really have problems, right? So that, I think, will hurt them. But they still have Marcus Smart, who's going to be a nightmare on that end of the floor. Again, it will depend on how the referees are calling the game, right? If they let Smart be super physical and bump, it'll be playing in Celtics' favor. If they get those, and it'll probably ebb and flow by the series, right? There'll be a series where Smart gets 2 quick early fouls because the refs are calling it tight. And that'll be a game that'll exploit and open up for KD and Kyrie. On the others, go ahead.
No. I was glad you brought up the 2 points there. One about, I do think it matters how the game's called, particularly how Marcus Smart can defend. And 2, going and attacking Al Horford is not the same as attacking Time Lord. Bruce Brown came out on the post-game press conference last night. You saw those comments, and he was pretty much like, yeah, like pretty much it's going to be easier. And KD was kind of like, yeah, like maybe we shouldn't say that much.
KD like, fast. Bruce, chill, bro.
He's like, chill, bro. Like, we know some of that's kind of true, but you don't have to put it out there.
You got to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you have winning this series? Like, who on that end?
This is another one. There's another one that goes 6 or 7. And we didn't talk about the Celtics. Look, Jason Tatum is playing excellent. Yes. Jaylen Brown playing excellent. He's healthy this year. He wasn't healthy last year in the postseason, so that's going to matter for them. But the Celtics have a tendency sometimes when the offense isn't flowing with the ball movement, they can get stagnant and isolation heavy. All right. Jason Tatum has eliminated a lot of those long twos out of his shot diet, which is good. But he can throw up one of those 7 for 26 games, right? And he's going to have at least one of those in this postseason, in this series for sure. And Jaylen Brown's going to have a night like that as well. I see this going 7 games, Dex. Because I cannot see a world where KD and Kyrie get bounced in 4 games. Like, I get it, all the deficiencies that team has, but those two are too good. All right. Like, they're just on their own. That's 2 games they're going to win. Right. Like, that's just, so that means we're going 6. Right. Like, that means 6 already just because of those 2. And I have a feeling we're going to have a Seth Curry game somewhere in there. We're going to have an Andre Drummond, Nick Claxton game somewhere in there. Like, we're going to have all these weird, like, the playoffs happen, right? Like, and things sort of just come up and happen. I see this going 7. And game 7 will be in Boston. So I will favor Boston. However, a game 7 with easy money sniper, I mean,
yeah. So here's where I'm with you. I think it goes 7. And I know people are like, oh, it's in Boston. Here's the thing. I've seen Kevin Durant come up big in a game 7. right?
I've seen Kyrie
I've
Irving
seen
come up
Kyrie Irving come up big in the game
come up
7.
huge in a game 7.
Huge
And
in the
in
game
Boston,
7.
you know he's not going to be afraid and be like, all right, I'll show
And
y'all.
he's the guy I think is motivated to have a big series. I want to pick the Celtics. If the Celtics had Time Lord, I might be different on this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be a tough series. I think it's going to be moments. Like you said, Jarod, I think it's going to be moments here. I'm going Nets in 7. I've thought about this. This is one I debated on long and hard last night and this morning. Nets is 7. I think it's 7.
Yeah.
But I think KD and Kyrie on the road, which look, sign me up for that. Give me a couple weeks.
Yep.
Game 7 on the road, Boston, KD, Kyrie going up there, Kyrie burning the stage, fans getting on him. I want to see it, man. I love a good
also,
game 7.
A last quick thing to mention there. Kyrie, even though he's played a lot of minutes towards the end of this, he's played the fewest games of anybody coming in. His legs are fresher. Now we got Ramadan to worry about, so that's a thing to be concerned about. KD had that 20-something game absence in the middle. He's a little fresher as well in terms of minutes, right? So that's something to be mindful. And the series, the way it's breaking, is giving them some more rest. They played Tuesday last night. Instead of playing Saturday, they're playing Sunday. So they have 4 days off now before they play again. And then game 2 is on Tuesday or Wednesday, I believe. So and then the next game is like another 3 days after that. The series is breaking because they're older. So the older team needs the rest. The Nets are getting some rest advantages. It looks like this could be helpful for them and help push that series where you can play them more minutes and go 7 games.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I got Nets in 7 on that one. All right, to the Western Conference. Number 3, Golden State Warriors versus the number 6 Denver Nuggets. I think the thing here, Jarod, is Jokic. I think you and I both have him for MVP. We both think he will be MVP. The Warriors, do they have an answer for Jokic? Probably not. I don't think so. You're going to throw some Kevon Looney. You can throw some Draymond at him sometimes. That's not good enough. But maybe the Warriors are fine to be like, all right, Jokic, you're going to get yours. Let's let the rest of these dudes, because it's been Jokic and the dudes out there. Do Jokic and the dudes have any shot against the Warriors?
Nah, man. And I love Nikola Jokic. Like, I just look, man, people need to like expand their brains. And it's not just people, it's NBA players too. Like you hear, and KD's my guy, LeBron, you hear all these guys talk, and it's always like, oh, Luka's so good, Joel Embiid's my MVP. This one, it's like, why y'all don't mention Jokic? And again, it's because the way he plays basketball doesn't look like what we think an MVP basketball player should look like, right? An MVP player to the casual NBA fan, or even like the most serious diehard baller, is if you're a big man, is a Shaq Embiid type, right? Or a Giannis type, where you're just constantly dominating in all the big counting stats. You're putting up 40 a night, whatever, all that. Jokic, with his assists and his scoring, like he scores 18 points, he scores 26 plus a night. It's with his passing and his facilitating and his scoring. He accounts for all of that for his team. He's excellent. That's the MVP. Look, the Warriors are going to go with Looney and Draymond straight up. They ain't sending no help because they're going to be like, you cool, you score 40 and do whatever. But the rest of these dudes, Facundo Campazzo, Austin Rivers, Will Barton, like Bones Highland, look, all nice players. Aaron Gordon couldn't be the best player in Orlando. So how the hell, so nobody's worried about them like that. And in a playoff setting, those guys cannot create on their own. They're just not good enough. They're just not. And it's not a diss. It's just the reality. Nikola Jokic is playing without 2 other max players. His 2 other max guys are not there. So the fact that they're even in this position
is amazing.
Is a testament to how good he is. But the Warriors are too much. They don't, and that's even with Steph, maybe not even 100%. We're not sure or whatever. Because they're going to single cover Jokic. Because when you double Jokic is when the trouble comes. So they're not going to double. For what?
For what?
Who? For what?
Right.
No need.
What are you going with? How many games for Warriors?
I'm going to go Warriors in 5. I
like it.
I just, maybe they have the random Austin Rivers game where he just lights out from 3 one night. Okay, cool. Cool. You got that.
Let them have one. Warriors, I like that. Warriors in 5. I'm with you on that. I won't belabor. I think you said enough on that. I will not take too much more time with that. Warriors in 5. All right. Here's another series that I feel confident is going to end in 5. Might not be the way some of you guys feel. That's the Dallas Mavericks. They're the 4th seed against the Utah Jazz. Look, Jarod, I'm going to keep it real. You know the issues I have with the Jazz, not being able to guard in the perimeter, people taking too many shots at Rudy. I have never been cool with that. I I'm gonna be blunt here. I just don't think it's working with the Jazz. I think this is the end of the Jazz if we see them. And I think this is the time Luka breaks through. Luka has been good in the playoffs. He just has not won. But I think this is a team that is going to be very hard for the Jazz to cover.
Yeah,
They do so much with their guards. They also play really good defense. And they found their confidence since they traded Porzingis. Jason Kidd's done a really good job. I'm going to just say at the top, I'll let you get into it. I got Mavs in 5 here. And I think Luka is focused if he's healthy, because he did have the injury. So that's of note. Mavs in 5, maybe 6. I'll give the Jazz 2 games, but I like the Mavs to do what they got to do.
So I'm with you on all that. The only thing that concerns me is this calf injury for Luka. Like, I don't know what that means. Because if he's a diminished version of himself, well then, I mean, look, for all Utah's ills, and you laid them all out, they were still the #1 offense in adjusted offensive rating this year. Okay, like, and we've seen Donovan Mitchell in a playoff series average 40 plus. Like, so let's not act like they can't do anything. Okay, they got problems, tons of them. They can't defend. But if Luka is hampered and is not himself, and I think he's going to end up playing injured this series anyway. Look, man, we talked about it in the group chat, right? The playoff margins are so thin and things change on a dime. Let's remember back to last season, Eastern Conference semis, Bucks down 0-2. What was everybody saying? Oh, Bud, better pack your bags, buddy. You about to get fired, right? All this and that, right? What happens? They win in 7. They go to the NBA Finals. Bud got job security for life now. Like, right, things change on a dime. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen for Utah, but look, what happens if they beat the Dallas in round 1 and somehow some other injury happens up at the top and they find their way into the conference finals? All of a sudden, things look a whole lot different, right? I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that's how this shit works sometimes. I see this series going 6 because I don't know about how healthy Luka is going to be. And again, if that calf is a real problem, who you trust on that team to do shit? I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie's got some playoff experience. Cool. Jalen Brunson. All right. Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, Dorian Finney-Smith.
Nobody that could really take over the game. And it's actually funny to say this, but this is kind of even where I'd feel better about the Mavericks. Maybe if they had a Tim Hardaway, they miss him at some way. You're asking a lot of guys who've played well together, but they don't really have that other scorer. That is a problem for them if Luka can't go. So you're taking Mavs in 6?
I'm going to take Mavs in 6. But if that Luka situation is problematic, I will not be surprised if Utah ends up winning this series.
I wouldn't be surprised at that either. Well, if Utah got to the finals.
Dear God. Lord have mercy.
That'd be crazy.
And if that doesn't happen, one of them superstars is gone. If they flame out in round 1, and I don't know what they do, but one of them's going.
One of them's going, and probably the coach.
Maybe Quinn's gone. Yeah.
That's another thing. All right. This is the series I think we are probably most excited for in the West. Of note, just so you know, notice we haven't talked about the series involving the #1 seed because we do not know who they're going to play yet. So this is why we haven't talked about that.
And we're also not concerned because the 1 seed is going to win in both conferences.
I think so too. Memphis Grizzlies versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Call it the trash talking series of the NBA playoffs. The series that we are hoping, we know at least the first game will not be on NBA TV. So we are happy about that. Hopefully during the week, it does not become an NBA TV series, but we at least know the first game will not be on NBA TV. The Memphis Grizzlies versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Look, anybody who's watched this show knows Jarod. You watch True Hoop, you know anything about this. Look, you know Jarod's been high in the Grizzly Cups. He's been high in them for like 3 years. So he's been riding their trajectory up and has spoken to me. And he's even put me up on game on things that I wasn't necessarily paying attention to with the Grizzlies. If you know me, I've become a very big fan of Jaren Jackson, particularly on the defensive end, where he has impressed me a lot. So I'm saying this all to say I'm very high in the Grizzlies and what they can do. Before we get to Jarod, we know that the big thing people are going to bring up against the Grizzlies, and I'm sure Jarod will agree, is going to be, oh, well, the Grizzlies haven't been here before. Oh, their age. Oh, they struggle in the half court, which is absolutely true. I just want to say that, like, these things are factual. I don't know that they're going to struggle, but they are factual. And they do struggle in the half court. And how does that translate to the playoffs? That's something I would like to see. But before I get to Jarod, what I do want to say is, while I think all that is true, I think this is a team that has heard all the noise through the regular season and has said, forget y'all. We came here to smash anyway. And I have no reason to believe that won't translate to the playoffs. I think they hear this noise and talk. Oh, they can't do this, they can't do that. Okay? So I want to say that first. I think that's very key here for us to look that they've had a lot of FU to their season, right, Jarod?
John Morant said it. He was like, we ain't ducking no smoke. We climbing up the chimney. Okay?
Right.
This dude said we're going up
the chimney.
That's where all the smoke is. Okay.
That's where all the smoke is. Santa comes down the chimney bearing gifts. They're going up the chimney trying to take you out of these playoffs. That's what it's about. I think that the Timberwolves, who are a trash talking team, all the moxie with Pat Bev, but we talked about some of their problems. D'Angelo Russell played well last night. I love Anthony Edwards. I think he might be the best player on the team. Karl-Anthony Towns has had a fantastic season. The question here is, I think people will predict, listen to both of us, Jarod. Oh, Dexter and Jarod, they like the Grizz. They rolling with the Grizz. Well, I'll say it, I am. But do you think the Timberwolves have any chance here at all to upset the Grizz?
Oh, of course they do. Look, you got Karl-Anthony Towns, who, despite last night's poor performance, is one of the elite big men in this game. Elite. Okay? He tricks off and gets 35, 10, and you're like, oh, what are we going to do now? Now, I feel good because I got Jaren Jackson Jr. and Steven Adams. I got size, so I'm not nervous. Like, damn, he's going to exploit the hell out of us. We don't have to do any kind of special fancy scheme to take him out. We're like, all right, Jaren, you got it. Or Steve-O, you got him. Like, so, okay, we cool. I think what matters here is for the Grizzly Cubs and the Timber Puppies, right? These young upstart teams, the Dillon Brooks, Pat Beverly, not matchup, because you're not going to waste Dillon Brooks on Pat Bev, but their ability, to impact their teams positively and ability to impact the opposition negatively. The irritant that wins that matchup is going to be important. Now, not just because I roll with the Grizz, I'm going to give Dillon Brooks the edge here because he's a better offensive player and he's bigger, right? And so that matters. So if D'Angelo Russell is causing problems, all right, D Brooks, you got to slide over to D Russell, no problem. Or if Anthony Edwards is causing problems, all right, D Brooks, you slide over and get Anthony Edwards, right? Like, they have some flexibility there. Desmond Bane is better on the wing as well. John Morant is a bit of a liability defensively, so they'll probably start him on Patrick Beverly, which is what I'll do. It was what I would do. Now, the big thing here is that Morant, and the Timberwolves are going to want to put Beverly on Morant. Do not get into a back and forth prove you, show you with Patrick Beverly, right? John Morant needs to take a page from Kevin Durant's playbook, right? He needs to, from all those years ago with Golden State, when he was like, I mean, I'm not going to get into some back and forth with Patrick Beverly. I'll just catch the ball and shoot him every time, but we're not going to do that. I'm going to run the offense. You know who I am, Kevin Durant. Like, that's how John Morant needs to see Patrick Beverly. I'm not engaging in a one-on-one battle with you. Everybody knows I'm better than you. I don't need to show that in this series. We're going to do what works for us within our offense because I'm John Morant. He needs to have that mindset. But if he gets into a push-pull tug of war, that is right into Patrick Beverly's hands, and that spells disaster for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, Patrick Beverly, he wants that. He's part of what? He is the smoke in the chimney.
Correct.
He's lurking in the chimney, waiting for them. I like the Grizzlies here. I just think they're the better team. I think they have more depth, top to bottom. But I do think chippiness matters for something.
For sure.
Chippiness matters for something that gives something, that makes something to a series. And sometimes a team can get a win over two of the series. I'm going to give the Minnesota Timberwolves 2 games here. I said 5 yesterday. I'm going to give them 2. Give me Grizzlies in 6. But I think it's a series that I hope and pray starts some sort of rivalry in the West.
Yeah.
2 young teams don't like each other, a lot to prove. We need something like that. We need a good series. No fighting. We don't need no hands thrown. We don't need that.
I don't need that.
But give me the talking, the chirping, guys a little bit annoyed. I'm with that.
You know what's interesting there, Dexter?
Yeah.
I thought the future of the league in the Western Conference 3 years ago when I jumped on the train for the Grizzlies, I was like, the future's going to be the Memphis Grizzlies and New Orleans Pelicans. That's going to be the future rivalry in this conference. Like, they're going to be battling head to head. And it's like, and that can still happen. The Pelicans could be coming up, but they're where they are now. I love this because remember when the Timberwolves beat them in a game in February, what did Pat Bev do when he got on Twitter? Oh, at Memphis Grizzlies, y'all ain't dancing or talking junk tonight, huh? All right, best of luck rest of the season. Listen, the Grizzlies remember that, okay, and they know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, my point remains the same. Do not get into a one-on-one battle with Patrick Beverley because once you do that, he's already won. And this is not a diss to Patrick Beverley. But again, this is Patrick Beverley we're talking about here. You a one-on-one with him? What are you doing?
Right. And his whole thing is about getting in your head. And we've seen this before in the NBA. Jarod's a great point. One person get into one's head. Some dudes get into a fight. I know this as a Knicks fan. Leaving the bench can turn your whole series, affect your playoff and championship aspirations. Don't do it. I love to see the talk. Trust me. I love to see the talk.
But do not let it escalate to more. And again, from a basketball standpoint, don't let him pull you out of your game plan. Right? Don't. If he gets a steal on you, John Morant, don't come back down. No, I got to go back. It's cool. Run what you got to run and do what you do. Not fight that urge because the urge is going to be there. It's going to be there.
The thing is, I think this is those kind of lessons are good things for this young Grizzly Cubs team and the Timberwolves to learn in these playoffs. So I'm happy to see a matchup with two good teams with some young stars that hopefully the NBA promotes well, for this as we start the first round of playoffs. Okay, so you got our predictions, first round of the playoffs. Let us know what you think about your predictions. We are going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about that's not good. That's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the play-in games that are tonight, the 9-10 matchups, which should be pretty interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how Jarod is going to pick in terms of betting on these games. We'll talk about those when we come back on NBA Exchange. Are you looking for a better way to play player props or daily fantasy sports? Well, look no further than Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the leading over-under daily fantasy game. Why? Because it's so easy to use and win. You can make your picks in under 30 seconds and win up to 10 times your money in one day. Right now, we have a special offer for our viewers and listeners of the NBA Exchange. All you got to do is sign up now and use the promo code NBAEX. Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Yep, that's right. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So, join the over 150,000 others who found a better way to play and download the Prize Picks app today. That's right. Use that Prize Picks code NBAEX. Get your first deposit up to $100 matched, and you could win some money. You can always win some money with Jarod. Jarod and Jenna, they had you winning some money last night. How did that? I did not check the show last night. How did it go for you in terms of the betting?
Streak continues. It was a rough night because I predicted the opening score 115-105. It was 115-108. And I was like, damn, man. And again, Nets in their bullshit. So I didn't get that one right with any of the parlays but game 2, I said take Minnesota in the points. That worked out. I think I did a single game parlay. That one messed up with Karl-Anthony Towns 30+ and
he was even close. He was not even close. Karl-Anthony Towns might as well have been a DNP coach's decision.
He was but kept the streak going. You got what do I say? You get one winner a week. Every week I give you one winner.
This is what Jarod guarantees. He does not guarantee he's gonna win everything for you. He said, look, if you one winner a week, you got your one winner there. By the way, did you see that thing last night in the game where the person came on the court?
Yes, and glued herself to the court,
glued herself to the floor. Yeah.
Do you know what it was about?
I do know what it was about.
Yeah, so
I found out this morning, and it was Glenn Taylor has a farm, and she's an animal rights activist, and all this stuff. So that was one of the more interesting things I've seen. Somebody trying to do in the court. Just wondering if you had seen that. That's interesting.
I was like, what? I was like,
what's going on?
I don't.
Okay. Sometimes I just wish people might do a little bit more of that to stand up for human rights. But that's a whole nother that's a whole nother discussion. All right. Since we don't have individual games to pick, and this week I could not steal Jarod's games, but Jarod could steal my games. We got 2 games tonight, 9-10 matchups. First, we'll start off in the East. Charlotte Hornets, they are in the ATL to take on the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks 5.5-point favorites here. Jarod, who do you like here? These are two teams that do not play much defense. A lot of offense.
Ton of
A
offense.
lot of offense. Yeah, you're rolling your eyes. I don't know how much you're going to enjoy this one.
Yeah, ton of offense. So the points make you a little nervous, but 5.5 isn't too big. As you always like to say, see if you can find a lower point spread, maybe 3 and change. I would take the Hawks here. Look, I have my issues with Trae Young, not as a player, but all the stuff he said this season and why the Hawks are where they are. I just feel like that is a reflection on his leadership and lack thereof. However, he leads the NBA in total points and total assists. I mean, like, the dude is an unstoppable offensive dynamo. And we already said Charlotte don't play no defense anyway. Now, LaMelo Ball going to want to show out and do his thing too. Rozier, they're going to be out here, So if you want to do player props with LaMelo, 8+ assists, Trae, 30+ points, Terry Rozier, 2+ threes, I like that. See how that plays. See what kind of odds you get on that. But in terms of the game, I like the Hawks to win this one and take the over. Whatever the over is, bang that over.
235.5. I'm
that.
with you on that. I'm taking the Hawks, but I think your best bet that you can do with this tonight is to take that over in this content. It's kind of how I felt about the Timberwolves Clippers game. I said felt good about the under in that game. I thought it'd be tough. I thought they'd play physical. Was a pretty low scoring game for today's NBA. Please, I would take the over here. I don't love this 5.5. I'm kind of like you two, Jarod, on this. I'd be inclined to take an alternate spread, maybe drop it down a couple of points. That did not work for me well with the Brooklyn Nets last night. But
wait, so you brought it down last night? You still didn't win?
I brought it down to 7.5.
Well, they win by 7?
And they won by 7. Yeah, that was always burst. I was like, I thought you could do 8 or more. I did not feel confident in doing 10 or more, but I thought you shaved off a bucket. Might be good there. I needed to shave off one more bucket. But this one, I'm with you. Don't love the line here, but if you want to incline to take Atlanta, I think your best bet is that over under 235.5. You might say it's a lot of points. Have you watched these two teams play this year? Particularly Charlotte. They can't stop anybody. No. And that's just giving Atlanta, who's a pretty good offensive team, a lot of range to score. So I like them there. Okay, in the West, San Antonio, they'll be in the Big Easy taking on New Orleans Pelicans. 5.5 point line again with the Pels here. Do you like the Pels here to cover, or are you taking San Antonio on the points?
I think I'm taking San Antonio with the points, man. Like, I see DeJounte Murray coming up with a big game. He was an all-star this year. It's Pop. I just feel like maybe they want to kind of extend their season a little bit, see what they got, give themselves a chance to get into that 8 seed. The Pelicans, they played better. Got BI, of course. You got CJ, Jackson Hayes. I mean, you got, Herb Jones, man. What a revelation that guy is. Look, New Orleans should win the game. That's why they're favored. But there's something about that team that I can't, in a big game where I know they have to win. I'm like, I don't quite trust them yet. And I'm giving the edge to the Spurs only because of Popovich and how I feel like he'll get his team ready. So I'm going to take the Spurs with the points.
Spurs with the points. This one's tough for me, man. The money line's not going to be great enough, I think, for you to take here with the Pels. Maybe if it was a little bit under 3 points. And I would say this is a game, if you're not sure, watch this line today. Yeah. I would maybe want to watch the line if anything changes on it as we get closer to game time. I am leaning like Jarod here to take the Spurs in the points. I would look at some player props with DeJounte Murray because I think he's shown out a lot this year and will want to show out on this stage. It's not a playoff stage, but I think it's a chance for him to show out. Look at that. The over-under, 224.5 here. That's tough. I can see this game with these teams being around that, right? I can see this game being 115, 109 or something like that. Yeah. It's a 108. I don't know. It could be really right around that. I'd stay away from this here. I do not love this game to bet. I'm going to be honest. If I did, I'd be taking player props. I'd look at something with what can you get in terms of Brandon Ingram over 24 points, a DeJounte Murray triple-double. I think those are things you might want to look at in this game. I'm probably inclined to stay from the line, but if I was going to, I would follow Jarod on this. I would go and take the Spurs and the points. And you get a close game. and hope for that, and you enjoy it, and maybe you win some money too, taking that plus 5.5.
Yep.
Can't go bad there. So if it goes the way Jarod and I said, what you then would see is you'd have the Cavs playing the Hawks. We both think the Hawks are going to win.
Mhm.
And you have the Pelicans. We think that even if the Pelicans win, the Pelicans playing the Clippers. Who do you like in those matchups?
I think this is Atlanta. I know Cleveland has been like the great story.
I'm with you on this.
But I know what. Listen, I said what I said about Train's leadership and all that, but I know what that dude does in big games, and they went to the conference finals last year. So I take Atlanta, and then in the West, I take the Clippers at home. I think Ty Lue will just scheme up the right stuff and do what they got to do. And so it'd be Clippers as the 8th seed and Hawks as the 8th seed.
Now, Clippers, any shot against the Suns?
I mean, look, you got Paul George and you got Ty Lue, you got a chance, but I think the Phoenix Suns are a machine. There's a reason why they've been the number 1 team all season long. They're just excellent. Now, what I think would be good for Phoenix is they get punched in the mouth a little bit in game 1, and it's like, oh, they'll wake up because they have kind of been in cruise control for a while. They haven't played a high-stakes game in quite some time. So this might actually be good for them to help them get ready as they hopefully make it back to the NBA Finals.
On the other side, Hawks, we both think they'll get the 8th seed. What about them against Miami? Do you like them to give Miami any trouble?
No, only because I know what Miami does defensively, and because the Hawks don't play any, Miami's offensive issues won't matter because the Hawks can't stop anybody. So the Heat will look like world beaters on offense. So no problems over there.
Oh God, you know what that's gonna be like for us after Brian Fonseca coming out here talking about. See, told y'all to go in the championship. Told y'all, you know it's gonna happen, man. It's always gonna happen. All right, man. Playoffs should be fun. On Friday, we're going to talk about how you can bet on these first round series of the playoffs. I'm not going to do what Jarod does and guarantee that I'm going to win y'all any money. I'm just going to say I take a measure of caution when it comes to these things, that you might want you to bet responsibly, as you should.
Always.
Don't be having to throw all your money on one playoff series, all this other stuff, but it should be fun. Enjoy the games tonight. I know Jarod and I will enjoy the games on Friday, and then Saturday. It all starts for real. So next week when Jarod and I are talking, you know what's Jarod, it's going to be an interesting week next Wednesday because we're going to see some teams that are tied in this series at 1. There's going to be some teams where somebody went up 2-0 that we might not have expected. And you know how that goes. We do this for a long time. Some people are going to panic. But what are we going to do next week, Jarod?
Nuance, guys. Nuance. We're going to give you nuance. Nobody panicking. Nobody freaking out. Nuance. No hot takes here. None of that.
None of that. We'll be talking about that next week. So next week should be really interesting because we'll be talking about a lot of the playoffs and some nuanced stuff around that, as we always do. He's Jarod Hector. Please check out his work on True Hoop, as well as all the other places you can see Jarod. Please definitely check his work out there. He'll be back with me next week. Be sure to check us out in everything that we do. Me on the A Hotel podcast. Also Friday here on this show. For Jarod Hector, I am Dexter Henry. Until next time, y'all. Peace.